Hey there and welcome to Yamaholics Anonymous. Today we'll be looking at a Yamaha synthesizer from the early 1980s that has mostly been forgotten. So first there was the GS series, GS standing for Grand Stage, and then later came the CE series, CE standing for Combo Ensemble. Now these were a cost-reduced version of the GS series. Their name kind of refers to what they were marketed for, which was having a bunch of instrument presets bundled in with them, and they use this term natural voices a lot in their marketing material, referring to the fact that these were supposedly very realistic sounding, which at the time they were. Nowadays, most people would laugh at this for sure. The symphonic chorus effect, they had that on the GS series as well, but ended up putting it in these, which is, I'll say, a nice feature if you are looking into getting one of these keyboards. They didn't use it in many of their other instruments. So I had been interested in trying to find one of these FM synthesizers from the earlier series, and I managed to find this one here. It's a CE25. It did have some issues as noted by the seller, one of which was being a noisy, distorted output. I thought it was a problem with the optocoupler, which was part of the circuit for the volume foot pedal. As you can see here, it's sort of like an organ style foot pedal. After I replaced it, I thought this had fixed it, but the problem returned. Well, what do you know? There's another one. So this one I ended up getting recently. It was local and for a good price, or so I thought again. It seemed to be working perfectly fine, and then sure enough, a day later, seemed to be displaying the exact same problem as the other one. Sort of a distorted output, low volume. So it seems like both of these units have the same problem. So I'm going to try to do two videos for these. This video will be me trying to repair both units, and then hopefully I'll do another follow-up video where I do a proper review and maybe even pit them against their big brother over here, the Yamaha GS2. Alright, so I've got the keyboard plugged into my audio interface. I will demonstrate the problem so you can hear it. I guess you could sort of describe this as a distortion effect. Not one that is intended, but here it goes. As you can hear, just an absolute cacophony of distorted brass, and you will just get it occasionally just from pressing down super hard on the keyboard. So something is either making contact that shouldn't, or there's a loose connection somewhere on the PCB. But you can hear that's what it's supposed to sound like, and that's what it sounds like when whatever is in there is going haywire. Now this is the second one. On this one it's a lot more difficult to reproduce the issue. Very nice strings. Alright, and I've got it opened up. My workbench is pretty cluttered at the moment. and the lighting over here isn't very good, so I apologize if you can't quite see things. Essentially, you've got the main board over here. This is where all of the sound generation is happening. This is where the magic happens. No, there's actually some magic over here too. This is actually the symphonic chorus effect. Then this over down here is your audio amplifiers, outputs. For right now though, I do want it to power this thing up and start poking around, seeing if I can start narrowing down the area where our problem is starting. As soon as you open this thing up, it seems to behave completely differently, so it's definitely a bit of a challenge here. I'm trying my best not to touch any traces directly with my finger, because these are still sensitive ICs at the end of the day. So I wasn't super thrilled with the output coming from my other amplifier, so I plugged it into a different one, a smaller little keyboard speaker. Seems like the sound is a lot cleaner, so I'm wondering if some of my problems were coming from that amp. As before, you can still hear So what this tells me is the way I have this propped up right now, it's actually preventing the issue from happening. Have to hold it like just right. I think I found the spot. So it's definitely over in this area somewhere. I'm guessing it's going to be one of these ICs over here. Since they have so many little pins on them. So I think that's going to be my first step. I also have the digital to analog converter over here, so there's a good chance this could also be the problem. So yeah, I'll probably just go over all of these with a soldering iron, just reflow the traces and go from there. I really wish I had better light, but it is what it is. Alright, so I reflowed all of the traces. I had been playing around for about 2 hours with this thing. Seemed like it was pretty good. And then out of nowhere, the presets started jumping around. Yeah, this is the typical things you deal with on these old keyboards. Especially these ones with plastic chassis, I'd say. You know, the flex that you get in the chassis tends to put more stress on all of the traces, so over time you'll get these weird connection issues. So yeah, I'll quickly show you what I mean. And it seems like it does correlate to how hardly I press on the keyboard. And as you can see, I'm going to press harder. You can see the lights start to flicker for the preset. Of course, now it's not going to do it. Oh. Completely changed presets right there. And now we have no preset. Now we have no sound. So it seems like in this section of the board, something is being stressed by the key bed. This has a different type of aftertouch on it. It's a mechanical type. You can see it moving here, the mechanism. And of course, this video is brought to you by iFixit. Just kidding. They do make good tools though. Don't lose all the little screws. Oh yeah, and one thing to note about this keyboard is you do want to unplug it from the wall, or in this case my 100-volt converter. Yeah, on this model they didn't have the power switch in line with the actual mains connection, so the transformer is always delivering power to the board. The layout of the wiring on this thing, I'll say, is not the greatest. There wasn't really that much space to have these thick bundles in here. This is the symphonic effect right here. This is the optocoupler I replaced. So before we go any further, let me just say that what you're seeing here is a compilation of probably about 4 or 5 hours of work that has gone into this thing so far, just trying to do this simple troubleshooting. I'll say, if you think that you can create a career based off of repairing synths, good luck, because unless your job is just swapping out CMOS batteries for musicians that don't know how to screw in a light bulb, you're going to be dealing with crap like this. So I've been spending some time reading through the service manual, and of course this is for the CE20, not the CE25. Good luck finding one for the CE25. If there's one that exists, doesn't really matter, because this is 90% the same as the CE20. So I was looking through it, and there's this one chip that stands out. It's called the VROM. So I believe this not only drives the preset selection, so it actually drives the LEDs for those preset buttons, which is a bit strange, but it also outputs the voice register data, so essentially what's going to program the FM parameters, from what I understand. And then it also does a few other things. So it sets the initial voltages for different voices, and it's essentially your ROM for all the presets, which is insane that it also drives the LEDs. But it's also outputting, like mono, poly mode, which I don't believe this keyboard actually has any mono modes. I know the CE20 does, so some of these features, I'll just say, may not be enabled in this version of the VROM. So yeah, based on what I'm seeing, there's probably a connection problem somewhere in this realm. And I should also note that this keyboard's a bit weird in that it has, I'll zoom in here, it has this additional board up here, which just has like a few different CMOS logic chips on it. It's almost like the ones they forgot to populate on the board, it seems like. But yeah, it's possible that there's also issues with that, because one of them does appear to be driving some of the logic for this VROM chip. So I think, as for right now, I think the plan is going to be to try reflowing the traces on these. Alright, so I've dropped the main board. You can see all of the Yamaha LS chips right here. So this is a 2-operator FM synthesizer. You have operator 1 and operator 2. The algorithm is hardwired since it's only a 2-operator. Operator 1 being your carrier, operator 2 being your modulator. And right here is your phase generator. So this is outputting basically wave tables with your frequency data based on which note is being pressed, and that is being read by this chip right here. This is your keyboard scanner. And then over here is the VROM chip that I was mentioning earlier. And then there's a few CMOS chips here and there. There's some digital to analog demultiplexing going on down here. But yeah, there's some logic that's taking the analog signals, the analog voltages from some of the control panel sliders, as well as the preset buttons, which are going directly into the VROM chip over there. And as you may have also noticed, the power supply is actually integrated directly into this board as well. So I'm going to play this a little bit, demo it so you can hear it. So we've got the volume pedal, seems to be working good, and the sustain pedal. This is without the symphonic effect. With it, you can even adjust the depth of it. It's so awesome. You can just hear that. Like I said, this thing is worth it just for that one effect. So yeah, this one, no surprise, plugged it in my DAW, works fine. So I guess there wasn't anything wrong with this one. It was just my old amplifier this whole time that was causing the noise. So I mean, the other one had the problem, that was a real thing with the loose connection on the circuit board. But yeah, this one, I've been playing it for quite a while now and haven't really run into any issues, so whatever, I'll take it. I expect to do a more in-depth review of the CE25 in an upcoming video, so stay tuned for that. And thanks for watching.